Don't want to go to the vet?
Hello and welcome to the Natural Pet Health segment of the Health and Wellness Show. Last week we talked about signs your pets may have in case of emergency situations. These are situations that require you to take your pet to the veterinarian as soon as possible, but sometimes you are unable to do it due to various circumstances, or can take them immediately or soon enough. Maybe your car is broken, or maybe you live too far away, or maybe 5 feet of snow block the entrance to your house. Unfortunately, with the upcoming ice age and recent extreme weather, this scenario is very real. So let's talk about various situations where you yourself can provide a basic emergency care. Please take note that not only I'm still a student and the advice I offer you is based on my own research and studies, but that it is also based on the so-called East European school, and some of the substances that can be found in every household here may not be found in North American household, for example. But hopefully the following information will be useful for you anyway. If it's a bee sting or a wasp sting, you can see your dog being restless or maybe even crying in pain. So what you can do is first of all to remove the sting, and then for 20-30 minutes to apply cotton wool tampon drenched in either alcohol, in peroxide, or to be exact the hydrogen peroxide or potassium permanganate, and then after it to apply iodine solution and also cold. If it's a snake bite, you can see that your dog also may cry in pain and will be restless, but there will be also swelling and maybe a redness in the place of the bite. Maybe there is also, your dog will be vomiting, or there will be hypersalivation. So what you need to do is to remove as much as blood as possible from the wound, and then to apply a cotton wool tampon drenched in vinegar, and also maybe apply iodine solution. And then if it's one of the extremities that is the bite is on the one of the extremities, then you can apply a constrictor for 30 or 40 minutes to basically prevent from the poison spreading. But then in any case you need to try to get your pet as soon as possible to the veterinarian. If it's a tick bite and you can actually see the tick, try to remove it, but don't remove it by force. If you can't remove it easily, then put a bit of oil or alcohol or petrol on the tick. Tick's supposed to fall by itself. If it didn't happen, then try to remove it by twisting it on its axis a bit, and then it should help. Now let's talk about foreign bodies, or specifically right now foreign bodies in the throat. Maybe your dog has swollen something. It can be something sharp like needle, or maybe a bone. My advice is to never give cooked bones, especially bird bones, to the dog, only raw bones. If it's a larger bone, then it's okay, but in case of chicken, for example, preferably give it to them raw, because otherwise they can be a real emergency case if it gets stuck. So in such situation, the dog is restless, there can be hypersalivation, and there can be vomit mixed with blood. So in such situation, you can first of all to hold your dog, and then try to open his mouth. Take a spoon and apply it to the root, to the base of the tongue, and keep it down, and then with your both fingers try to remove the object. If you still can't remove the object easily, then and there is a respiratory distress, you should try to get to the veterinarian as soon as possible. If the foreign object is in the eye, or you can see your dog's eye basically tearing or red, or the dog is scrubbing it and trying to remove something, then take water that was already boiled but not hot, maybe warmish or cold, or maybe you have potassium permanganate solution. Try to rinse it, trying to rinse the eye, but don't scrub it in the process. If the foreign object is in your dog's ear and you can see the dog shaking his head, or maybe trying, with paws to remove something from his ears, what you can do is, if there is something that you can't remove by yourself, then take your pet to the veterinarian as soon as possible, but maybe you can try to remove it yourself. If it's an insect, then put 5 to 10 drops of vegetable oils to the ear and try to remove the insect by yourself. If it's water, put your dog on the side and shake his head, so maybe the water will be removed by itself. Or maybe try to remove it by cotton wool tampon. I hope that for now you were able to notice that there is nothing extraordinary about those basically emergency situations or emergency first help, because it's really logical, so to say, and many cases that can be applied to humans can be applied to pets as well. You just need to be careful and understand that your pets you can't talk to your pet and explain to them what is happening, so you basically need to hold them tight, or maybe try to relax them a bit, so they will be more easily handled in such situations that are already stressful for both the pet and you. Okay, so if it's a splinter, then you may see your dog trying to remove it, or maybe he licks the paw too much. So what you can do is to remove the splinter, to apply iodine solution or maybe alcohol to the place, and then to apply a gauze bandage. If it's a complicated or serious situation, then you can surely apply to veterinarian as well. Next, let's talk about various wounds. It can be as a result of a cut or something else. And considering the situation in the US where police is shooting dogs almost every day, this information can be really useful for you. Now, first of all, if you have a wound, you can do something like this. You need to either shave or trim the fur, the coat around the wound, so you can take scissors for it. After it, you need to take hydrogen peroxide solution and clean the place around the wound, and then to apply iodine solution to the wound. All of this is basically intended to disinfect the wound. And then what you can do, if it's a small wound, that you can apply adhesive sticking plaster on it. And if it's a cut wound, then you can, even in emergency situation, and if you don't have anything else and you can stitch the wound, you can apply a bit of a glue, the instant glue, and then you can bandage the wound and try to get to the veterinarian as soon as possible. Now, in case of bleeding or hemorrhaging, what you need to do is to basically clean the wound in the way that was already described, and then apply tight bandage with 1 layer or 2 layers. If there are 2 layers for the bandage, you can put a bit of ice in between the layers. Now, if the bleeding or hemorrhaging is happening in one of the extremities of the dog, then you should put the dog in such a way that the wounded extremity will be up. And then remember that if there is a very strong bleeding, for example from the artery, you need to apply constrictor above the wound. And then every hour you need to relax a bit the constrictor to remove it for 1 minute, but still to apply pressure on the artery above the wound with your finger. And then after the bleeding stops, you need to give to your dog, maybe even by force, a bit of warmish tea or coffee. There is a logic in it, or maybe even a sweet warmish tea or coffee, because the explanation for it, the logic for it, is that your dog lost a lot of fluids, and before you get to the veterinarian, you need to replenish the supply also of glucose. So basically, just like for humans, that after a serious shock, you give them tea or something for the heart, like a coffee stimulant. The same you can do for your dog. Now, in case of burns, there are all kinds of burns, and it depends on basically the treatment depends on the nature of the burn. But you need both. You need two basic things: water and neutralizing solution. So, if, for example, the cause of the burn is acid, you need to create sodium bicarbonate solution to neutralize it, to treat it. Sodium bicarbonate solution can be made with 1 teaspoon of sodium bicarbonate on 1 glass of water. And if the burn was caused by alkali, then you need to create a vinegar solution. 1 teaspoon of vinegar on 1 glass of water. And if the burn was caused by quicklime, then you need to apply oil, some kind of vegetable oil on the burn. And if it's an extremity that is burned, you can put the burned extremity for 20 minutes in cold water. Of course, there are other emergency situations, and we are going to finish talking about them in another show, and also about basic things you should have in your house. For now, thank you for listening, and hope you found this information useful.